shift to the listing side. So you've always been doing listing presentations, right? That's what, when you're getting a listing, that is part of your interview process. What makes you think that the listing presentation is more of a strategic conversation than just like a slideshow of here's what I offer?
Yeah, we don't do a slideshow.
Slideshows are lame.
We don't do that.
Good.
Okay,
no, we don't do that.
Now that I've angered a good portion of your listeners.
No, well, that's fine. I mean, slideshows work. They bring the laptop and they have people look at a slideshow.
Yeah, I take it back, everybody. If you use a slideshow, that's awesome.
Everyone has their own way of doing things.
But all right. So here's the good news. The listing presentation is exactly the same, except for one part that gets added in. So for us, our listing presentation, without fail, goes exactly an hour and a half. So the first steps are the same. We send the text. Here's what we're going to talk about. And just kind of confirm the appointment.
Yeah.
And then the first question is the same. What do you have in mind? And you sit there and shut your mouth and listen and ask follow-up questions and keep listening.
Yep.
You use that information that you gathered to figure out how to best serve their needs. You spend a very, very little time telling them about your qualifications, only the ones that are going to benefit them and why it benefits them.
Sure.
Now, notice we haven't looked at the house yet. That's a mistake many people make, is touring the house first. And everybody wants you to tour the house first because they don't know any different.
Yep.
They don't know what the process is.
And they ask, would you like to tour the house first? And we say, no, let's sit down and chat.
Down.
Yeah. So we're kind of, I don't want to say forcing them, but, we're kind of guiding the whole presentation.
Guiding it. I like that. Yeah.
Yes.
You're in control.
And we should be guiding them. That's our job.
Guiding it. You're the professional. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, here's the part that gets added in, Kristen. It's how we're going to market your house. So you better have a plan of action, and it better be more than putting it in the MLS and sticking a sign in the yard, because that doesn't work anymore.
And you're not just taking pictures with your phone, right? So
no.
Yeah.
Because that's part of our thing. We do professional photography. We do 3D walkthrough. We do a professional video. We have a floor plan rendered. Here's another interesting stat. The number 2 thing that buyers ask for, professional photography being number 1, is a floor plan.
Yeah.
And did you know that less than 10% of agents provide one?
It is very rare. And I love I love when that's provided, because it especially if you have people that are coming from out of town, obviously, or even people not from out of town, they want to see that. So all of your listings you do through, what service do you use for that, just for people to learn?
All right, this is going to be worth listening to this whole thing. Cubicasa, Cubicasa. You can actually walk through with your phone, scan a house in less than 5 minutes, and within 24 hours, for a very, very low price, they send you back a floor plan that's not only perfect, but it's got measurements and everything. And the measurements, if you're using an iPhone, they're within 3% accuracy. And on Android, it's a little bit less than 5% accuracy.
Now, does that go on the listing as well, or is that only provided if asked for?
Oh, we put it on the listing because they provide you with JPEGs and PDFs and a bunch of other formats that nobody uses. But the PDF goes in the attachments in MLS, and the last picture, when you've got all your pictures, the last picture is the picture of the floor plan.
Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense. And to your point, I rarely see or hear agents talking about that. And I think that does help set you apart, obviously, too, as part of your here's the marketing. That's part of the marketing.
We also do drone.
Yeah, when it's appropriate.
Yeah.
Obviously, we show it when there's showing a proximity to water, or showing the size of the lot, or its proximity to other important things. But if it's just a regular neighborhood, showing the roof of the house really isn't beneficial.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to show you something here. It's a
Ooh.
box.
We do moving boxes.
This is the smaller version. We have a bigger version, and it has handles on it. We have one here. I could show you, but that's the smaller version. So we give moving boxes to both our buyers and our sellers.
Yeah, we do. And that's another very inexpensive thing that you can
Mhm.
use to add value, because I mean, our job is to help people move.
Yep.
So
Get started.
what-
Start packing.
and that gets them started so they're not scrambling at the
Clean
end.
up that clutter, right?
Yes.
So Kristen, I'll give you a link you can put in the show notes so that they can get where we get these boxes. So what we do is we send them 30 large boxes. It comes with bubble wrap, comes with dividers, comes with tape, comes with a marker, everything they need to get started. And I don't quote me on this, but I think it's about $130. You just
It
go
is.
on the website, they send it, you don't ever have to touch it. It gets delivered to their door.
It gets shipped to them.
And for your first order, they'll help you set up your artwork if you need help.
I like it.
And it's an awesome service. So I'll give you the link to that.
Yeah, give me the
And-
link to that, and I'll add
then
it
you can share that with people.
to the bottom, and then that way people can access that. All the things you're talking about and all the things that you do are really the value adds, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, if they're interviewing other agents, what are the things that you're doing and saying that you do that are part of your marketing or whatever it is that help stand out? And so those are the things that are part of all. That's your package. That's your whole package deal that you provide. That when you work with us, this is the things that we'll provide for you that'll help you. So
Yeah.
that how and you know, things are in the market are always evolving and changing. Pricing.
Mhm.
So pricing is a hot topic these days. And you know, you still have some sellers that think we're here and we really need to be here. How are you handling pricing and the objections of, well, I want a price here, but it really needs to be here?
Glad you brought that up because that happens constantly. Look, everybody feels like their house is worth more than it really is. And everybody's got some house in the neighborhood that they think sold for a whole lot, and theirs didn't even have a bird feeder. You know?
Right.
So we come in prepared with a lot of research. We use RPR for ours, and of course there's many other ways you can prepare a presentation for pricing. But one thing that we start off with is explaining that none of us in this room get to decide what the price of the house is. The market's going to decide. And we can give you the information of what it's likely to sell for. But at the end of it all, we need to come up with a strategy to sell your house. So it's not going to sell for more than it's worth. It just isn't. The consumer is way more educated than that these days.
I actually like that you tell them that you don't dictate it and they really don't dictate it. It's
that's right.
What the consumer is willing to pay for it. Yeah,
because we're not going to get into an argument about what the price is worth, like you're negotiating a price to buy it. That's a fool's errand.
Yeah.
And it really is. So to get back around to the beginning of your question, if the person wants to list for substantially over what the value of the house is, you're going to have to make a decision. We don't take badly overpriced listings because we spend a lot of money up front.
Right.
With all the things that I described. Those all cost money.
Thousands of dollars.
So we're spending a lot of money up front for a house that we know isn't going to sell. And guess whose fault it's going to be when it doesn't sell?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if it's greatly overpriced, we just don't take it. And I know that's a hard pill to swallow because this is a tough business and it's hard out there.
And everybody needs money, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, we do this full time.
But you're not going to get the money and you're going to spend money trying to get nothing.
Right.
So here's what we do. We say, all right, let's go with your price. We'll list it at that. And we're going to know right away if we're right or wrong. So if our phone isn't ringing and we're not getting any showings or offers within, and of course it adjusts by the market. Right now we're saying within the first 2 weeks, if we're not getting a bunch of showings and an offer, then we're going to have to sit down and reevaluate this because that's the market telling us that we're wrong.
Yeah.
And we need to make an adjustment. because it's going to sell for what it's worth. That's just the way it is. The market is fickle. And the other thing that we have to keep in mind is chances are that buyer is going to have a mortgage, and that lender is going to require an appraisal. And this property has to appraise. So that's another thing where it kind of puts it off of you.
Yeah.
It puts it onto a higher authority.
It puts it on me. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I was speaking to another agent recently, and I really love that approach of a deadline. So it's okay. We'll try it at the price that you want to list it at. Obviously, I'm sure if it's in reason, right? But at this date, whatever the market is at that time, we're going to reconvene. And if we haven't had showings, or we haven't had, whatever it is that you're gauging the interest on, then we're going to have another conversation. So that way, when that time comes, it's not unexpected. We talked about the fact that we would talk in 2 weeks, and that we needed to address it. And so therefore, it really is, it's taking the concern around like, oh, I'm going to have to go have this conversation. We've already said we're going to have the conversation. So
right. It's already a plan.
Yeah.
And having a plan is always beneficial. And I have one other tip for agents out there, is that there's one thing that nobody thinks about when they're selling. They're always thinking about the comps. What are the comps? What are the comps? This house sold for this house sold for that. But we have to think like a buyer. I was like, okay, I've got $500,000 in my pocket. What can I go buy today? And if yours isn't the best one for $500,000, guess which one I'm buying?
Yeah.
And that's just, and people, you always see the light bulb turn on. It's like, oh my God, that's true. And that helps to bring it around to where, look, it doesn't matter what anything says. And we do a new market analysis every week for our listings.
Oh, I like that.
Yes, it's work. I get that. But, guess what? We're getting paid to do it.
Yeah.
So we do a new market analysis every single week. And the main thing we're looking for is new competitors that have come on the market that week. So we can let our seller know, it's like, hey, this guy just put his house up for sale for X number of dollars. Here's a link to the pictures. This is a tough competitor.
Here's how that's going to impact us.
Let's talk about our strategy. Maybe we need to make an adjustment so that, his house doesn't sell first.
Yeah. And
it's all about location, price, and condition.
It is.
Always. And okay, so the location, you can't do anything about that. But the condition, you can do some things about, which we do talk to our sellers about. And pricing, of course, just like Chuck was saying, that pricing is really, it's really the issue. That's it. Truly.
Now, get more advice, more unsolicited advice for you guys out there. Get to the point where you can look somebody squarely in the eye and tell them this. There's only one reason why property won't sell: price.
Yeah.
That's it.
And sometimes it's that hard truth. Sometimes it's that hard conversation, especially if they've interviewed another agent and that agent says, I would suggest listing at 430 and you're suggesting listing at 410, right? So how do you handle that, that conversation?
It's like, all right, it's possible we're wrong. I doubt it. I mean, you have to judge whether or not you can be sarcastic with somebody.
Yeah.
But by that time, if you can make fun of it. You say, hey, there's a chance that we're mistaken on this. So let's list it at your price. We're going to know right away if the market will accept that. Because if the phone's not ringing and we're not getting showings and offers, we're going to know right away. So then we can make an adjustment. So let's talk at the end of the week and see how it's working and go from there.
We show them how the pricing impacts time on market and what their final sales price is going to be.
Yeah. Because there are statistics available and charts and graphs. So if you find that they're a charts and graphs kind of person, bring them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, the data speaks. And so right now what you see is a lot of chasing of the market. I think that the art is getting ahead of the market And
Yes.
being able to have that tough conversation with the seller because they think it's here and it's really maybe here, and being able to have that tough conversation. You guys are seasoned agents, and so you're not scared to maybe, I mean, have you ever turned down a listing because you couldn't meet eye to eye on the
I
price?
was just going to talk about that. So we had
Mm.
sellers that
Oh, I know which one you're going to talk
wanted
about.
okay, so Chuck and I are sitting on the couch. I'm to his right, he's here. And the seller said she wanted to list it for 900,000, and per our analysis it was in like 735.
Big mark. Yeah, big difference.
So all
And
Chuck
she was
did,
adamant about it. She goes, I am not taking less than 900 for this house.
Chuck did this, closed the book, closed our book, and basically said we're done. And yeah, so interestingly enough, with that listing, within 3 days, it went from 900 to 800 price reduction. They actually, it was on the market a very long time. They sold it in the sixes.
Wow.
And and all the things that we do were not done by the other realtor. And it just turned out to be that they actually did not get the amount that
But they
they
wanted.
could have gotten if they hired us, truly.
Yeah.
In our opinion.
Yeah. I mean,
know,
the data
nobody knows,
speaks
but
to your point. If you can provide data that shows that being ahead of the market will actually yield you more money. Had they listened to you, they would have yielded that 700-ish figure, I'm sure,
yes,
instead of it
Mhm.
sitting on the market. And now they're in a position of chasing the market, and prices have come down and they're having to chase it. And that just is a total different end game for the seller. But you know, some of those conversations are tough, and and like you said, you know, we just shut the book and we said this is
it was
not
so
gonna be
funny.
a
Like,
right
I
fit.
don't think I've ever seen him do that. I laughed to myself, and then I laughed in the car. We get out. I said,
Oh
"You
my
just shut that
goodness.
book."
Yeah.
I mean, it just was so. It was so physical. It really was right. It was such a physical.
I didn't think about it.
He
It
didn't
was
think about it, but I did. It
You're
was like,
done.
oh my
Yeah.
God. Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, Pat, because that's the next part of the listing presentation. So you go over your plan, you go over how you're marketing it, and then notice a lot of similarities here to what we already talked about. Then you ask the two questions. Does this sound like a good plan? They say yes. Great. You think we're the right people for you? If the answer is no, refer them to somebody else. There's no reason to continue the conversation.
Yeah.
There's no reason to tour the house. There's no reason to talk about pricing or any of that stuff because it doesn't matter. They're not hiring you.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if they do say yes, then it's time to do the tour of the house and talk about pricing and then talk about how you get paid.
Yeah.
But no reason to talk about it if you're not going to get hired.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the big piece of all of this and what you guys have is the confidence, right? So you're confident in your ability. You're confident that you're providing value, and you're confident that you can sell the home if they are, you know, if they're on board to work together and collaborate to get to the end goal together. But
Right.
if they're not, and it's not the right fit, I think that is where a lot of agents find themselves, especially today and anytime really. But you find yourself in this position where you want to get the listing, you want to get the business. And so you put yourself in this position where you're committing to do something that is never going to yield the right, you know, what the seller or the buyer, you know, potentially buyer could be looking for. So those tough conversations, I think, do come with seasoned agents, right? And not all seasoned agents are able to do it either. So, by the way,
Everybody's different. Everybody's got their methods.
yeah,
But very early on in the conversation, we tell them that, hey, look, you know, by the time we're done chatting here, there's going to be some options. You may decide to just stay put. You may decide that you want to hire somebody else. And if that's the case, we can recommend somebody for you and therefore get a referral fee, hopefully. You know, you don't say that part out loud. And then you say, we may decide that this is really great and we're going to work together.
yeah, and we can go from there and talk about what's next. Yeah, absolutely.
And can I give you one other tip? It's a little not in the right linear order, but while I'm thinking about it, most people believe that us agents get whatever the percentage is that the fee is, and we don't. So we don't say that, all right, we charge X percent to
We
list
don't
your
use
house.
that language at all.
Now, in our case, we work for Next Home, so we say, all right, and Next Home's fee for listing your house is, and then that. And it does two things. First of all, it lets them know that we're not getting the whole amount of money, which is obvious to us, but it isn't to the people out
It's
there.
absolutely not. Yeah, it's definitely not.
And also, it puts it on a higher authority. It's like, okay, well, Next Home, whoever they are, charges this. It's not our decision. We can't just sit here and it's like, oh, well, we can do something different. Like, well, Next Home doesn't usually do that. We can discuss it with our broker.
Yeah. And the other piece to that is that, yes, Next Home is charging X, and you have a bunch of expenses that go against, listing a home.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm sure that's something that you cover as far as the, not necessarily down to the dollar, but I'm sure that it's a conversation of, there are expenses that come along with listing the home, and, all that comes back to us. Right.
And that's part of the plan where we're going over our plan and say, all right, so when your house hits the market, we've already spent, we'll figure out an approximate amount, let's say it's $1,000. We've already spent $1,000 on day one. So we're putting an investment into this for you.
Yeah. Education, communication, there is such a lack of it, I think. And that's where the consumer truly does not know how you get paid. They don't know how I get paid. They don't know how you get paid.
No.
You have to educate them. And so spending the time up front versus down the line when something either blows up or whatever the case is very, very important.
And you can't expect them to know because they've only done this a couple times in their life,
or maybe never, right?
Or maybe even never.
Yeah, or their neighbor.
You can't expect anybody to know anything.
They heard something else on the news and they don't know what's right or wrong. Yeah, so you cannot assume. Absolutely. So, brand new agent coming in, give one the biggest recommendation you have on the buy side and the biggest recommendation you have on the list side for a brand new agent.
It's the same for both. We made a big commitment to our sphere of influence very early on, and I recommend everybody else do so as well. Now, obviously, it's tough to get started, but go out and do things that you like to do, and you're going to make friends. Don't worry about whether or not they're thinking about buying and selling. Don't even ask people that, because everybody asks that. Just go out and make friends. Everybody knows what realtors do. You'll inform them that you're a realtor somehow. Maybe it's written on your hat, or maybe you're wearing your name tag.
Yeah.
But you don't have to talk about it. Our biggest source of business has been the local Volkswagen community, because we've got a couple of vintage Volkswagens. So we like to drive them around. We like to go talk to other people that have vintage Volkswagens. And we've gotten a lot of business from that. Not because we're hounding them for listings or buyers, because they're our friends.
Yeah. It's very organic. It really happens organically.
Now, here's another tip for you, new people out there. Don't ask, like, hey, do you know anybody that's thinking about buying or selling? They don't. I'm telling you right now, they don't know of anybody. But instead, ask them, hey, if you know anybody that's got any questions about real estate, I'm happy to tell anybody anything they want to know.
I love that.
If people do have questions about real estate, I mean, even people you run into randomly at the grocery store, they ask you a real estate question. Hey, how's the market?
Yeah.
So your question about a newbie is kind of interesting to me because, Chuck was a professional commercial photographer for a very long time. And, 10 years ago, then he joined the brokerage. And so he hadn't done any deals. But if you want to tell them about your first client, and I think this is an important thing to know because people are like, well, I was a teacher before, or I drove a bus, or, I was a social worker. Like, who do you know? Like, it doesn't have to be family. It just could be people that you've encountered. Well, I go to a coffee shop every day. I've known the owner for 10 years. I mean, just things like that. But talk about what your first client was like.
My very first client is somebody I'll never forget. It was somebody who was a photography client way before. And what the job was, I did a bunch of boudoir photographs for this lady as a gift for her then boyfriend, now husband. And so fast forward a couple of years, I make the announcement that I'm now a realtor. Now, I know this lady. She's a friend of a friend, so we know each other. And I also know that she has a very good friend who's a very competent realtor here in town. But she called me instead. So after everything was all finished, I asked her, say, look, if you don't mind me asking, I know you've got a friend that's a very competent realtor. Why did you pick me? She said, I know you'd do a great job. I trust you.
Trust is the key word
Trust.
there.
Yep.
Yes.
She didn't say, well, it's because I know that you've sold X number of houses.
No.
She knew I was
I
brand new.
trust you. Yeah.
She
And
also
didn't
knew she was
necessarily
my
care
first
that you were
client.
brand new either, right? So
She didn't care.
It didn't matter.
The fact that you're able to do a good job is assumed.
yeah. Yeah. No,
After that, it's all about, can they trust you? Are you going to be pleasant to work with? Are you going to do what you said you're going to do?
yeah.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, lots of things to walk away with from this conversation. The thorough consultations you do, the listening, the trust. I mean, all super super important. And it goes to show why you have these long-term relationships and why all of your business comes from your sphere. You're not doing, some online marketing or getting these cold leads. It's all from your sphere or organic leads. But that goes to show the great relationships you've built, and over the past 10, 15, 20 years with doing what you do, whether it was in real estate or not.
Yeah, and it is an investment in time,
Sure.
but it's way, way more valuable than buying leads. I'm not saying those are bad, of
Sure.
course.
We're not saying that
a lot
at
of
all.
people get
Right.
rich doing
Yes.
that, but we find that they're a lot easier to close. And can I give you one other tip?
Yes.
We've talked all this time, we've talked about a good, solid, structured presentation. But if it's a friend or a family member, don't skip it. They deserve to hear that presentation just as much as anybody else.
Yeah.
And also don't think that you have the deal.
Already.
Don't ever assume.
Don't ever assume that because it's a friend or a family or someone that was referred to you or even somebody that you worked with in the past that you don't have
That
to
it's
do
in
a
the
good
bag.
deal.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you just another quick story. So where we live, our street happens to flood. We don't get anything in the house. It's just the street floods. And there's cars that always get stuck in front of our house. We're always going out there helping people to, get their car out and stuff. So there was a Toyota Prius that was just right at the end of our driveway. And we were at the front door. We went out and talked to them, right?
Yeah, and they were like, well, we're trying to get out to the beach.
We're trying to get out to Treasure
And
Island.
we're not exactly sure how to get there with this street flooded.
So you gave them our card.
I said, all right. I gave them directions. Said, look, here's my card. Call me if you get lost. Or if you get stuck, I've got a big truck. I'll come get you.
Right.
Yeah.
We have, a Ford F-150. We'll come get you. Don't worry. We didn't know them. We didn't even know their names.
The reason why they needed to get to the beach is because they have a multi-million-dollar condo on the beach
that they were going to spend
that they
their
were
time at.
thinking about selling.
Oh.
So we got a phone call not long after and said, hey, do you remember us? We were sitting in front of your house. I'm like, oh, yeah. He goes, well, we got this condo on the beach. We're thinking about selling. And, you guys seem really nice. We'd like to talk with you about it. Of course, we have a realtor. I'll just tell you that right up front. We have a realtor, but we don't have any obligation to them. So, you want to chat? And we did. We
met
showed
them
up
for
prepared.
dinner.
And after it all, I said, hey, by the way, why'd you pick us instead of the realtor you already knew? He says, well, when you showed up prepared. You had all your research. You had everything. They didn't bring anything. They assumed that they had the job.
They assumed they had it.
And that
Such a good piece of advice.
irked
It truly
them.
is.
It was
Yeah.
really
that they
amazing.
showed up assuming they had it
Yeah.
and weren't willing to sit there and go through the
And go
presentation.
through it like you would with somebody else. Such
Yes.
great advice. And again, it is something that happens all the time.
Mhm.
And it's easy to think that because it's family, or you've helped them before, they know you'll do a good job, that kind of thing. But always use it as an opportunity to tweak and practice, if anything, right? And try something new. Who knows? I mean, it's just it's good to not assume. So all of the tidbits you guys have shared I know will be helpful for people, newer or not. We sometimes it's good to just hear things and get back to basics, or adjust the way we're doing things. And you guys gave some great resources that you use, so I'll make sure to share those too.
And we've got more resources if you'd like to share it. On our website, we've got a lot of free resources for other agents. It's refertochuckandpat.com.
I love it. Yeah, we'll share that.
A lot of free stuff on there to help other people out.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. There's no wonder why you guys are successful. You do a great job with relationship building and rapport, and you're confident. I think at the end of the day, having the confidence, knowing that you know what you're doing, and whether we're a right fit or not, we're going to be here, kind of thing, goes a really long way for people. So thanks for joining us, and we'll share your information, and I know we'll chat soon. So we appreciate you coming on.
Thanks so much, Kristen. This was
Thank
great.
you, Kristen.
Awesome. I enjoyed talking. Thanks.